Ah, sister location. Where do I begin to talk about you? I guess the first thing I could say is my feelings on the game are pretty divided. Like, I kind of like it, but then there's some elements of it that I don't like about it. You know, it's very strange. I mean, you've all heard me praise the hell out of the first 4 games, right? As like the pinnacle of FNAF, which is true. I still think that's the case today. But Sister Location's a very weird one. I was excited for it, and I do like it to an extent, but there's a lot of things it kind of does that it's like, I don't know if I like where it's going or where it's taking the series, but I guess that's what we'll talk about. So maybe I'll start with the things that I do like about it. The first and obvious part being like the characters. I mean, the Funtime characters, they're pretty iconic now at this point. They're very well-liked characters in the franchise. You know, they're standouts to the level of like the original crew, you know, from the first game. And they're very unique because they also have their own voices and personalities, you know, their own character traits and everything. And they interact with you better than any of the animatronics in the series have. Well, up until Security Breach, I suppose, but let's not talk about that game, shall we? I mean, look, you got Ballora, who's, you know, very soft-spoken with her voice and almost very, you know, sophisticated, mothery kind of feeling to her. You got Funtime Freddy, who's, you know, just the Joker, but an animatronic now. You got Funtime Foxy, who, you know, doesn't really speak too much, but the fact that her level takes place in, like, you having to go through her dark room and, like, flash a flashlight while she tries to sneak up on you kind of says a lot about her character. And then obviously you got little Bon Bon on Freddy's hand, who, again, doesn't really talk too much or anything, but the fact that they're sneaky and mischievous kind of gives off, you know, tells you what you need to know about them, right? And then you got Circus Baby, of course, who's probably the most important member of the cast. You know, we were with her personality being very, very deceptive. You don't really know what she's on about, right? Like, she talks to you throughout the game. She helps you out through certain levels, you know, being your guide. And then she even tells you a bit about her story, you know, the tragedy of her and how she's possessed by, like, a child that she didn't want to kill, but she just, you know, had no control over her, that she was programmed to kill, essentially. But then at the end, it's revealed that she was lying to you all along, and she's actually one of the villains of the story, and then she gets you killed. Which is pretty freaking cool if you think about it. Like, what a unique way to tell the story and to interact with these characters. I really think that's really, really cool. Plus the whole atmosphere of, like, the sister location, you know, the underground laboratory and everything. It's so creepy. It's just perfect with the aesthetic of the FNAF games at that time, just being very ambient and very creepy-like. It just worked really, really well. You know, gameplay, yeah, I mean, it was still kind of point and click like the other games, with a bit of mobility to it, but, you know, it got the job done, I guess, you know, as linear as it was. But I think the most important part that everybody likes to talk about with these games is the story or the lore it adds to the overall timeline of the FNAF games. Which it is very interesting, right? It starts to, like, give the motivations of why Afton, you know, went and did what he did, and, you know, causing everything to happen, essentially, with the kids possessing the animatronics and being, essentially, the game franchise we know and love today. But that's a bit of where my problems also start to begin with the game as well. It's like, I don't know if I like that motivation for Afton, you know? Like, this was a problem with the 4th game as well, right? Like, since, you know, the crying child is also the son of Afton, you know, who was also tragically killed, and then which now everybody, you know, the speculation is, oh, Afton was driven to madness by, you know, the tragedy of him losing his 2 kids, and that's why he goes on and becomes the murderous psychopath he is. Which, you know, it's interesting to have motivations and stuff. And, you know, it doesn't really justify his reasonings for why he, you know, kills. Like, he's still an evil son of a bitch for doing it regardless, no matter what, you know, his reasoning is. But I don't know, I kind of just like the idea of him just being some psychopath, you know, somebody who just doesn't have like really deep tragic motivations for why he does his killings. He's just a psychopath, you know. He just likes it because he likes the feel of it. He likes feeling powerful when he, you know, kills. And this kind of underwhelms him a bit, in my opinion. Makes it I don't like the tragic aspect of it a bit. But I mean, it's not. I mean, that's not that big a deal, I suppose. It's just a little nitpick thing that I didn't like. I very much just like the idea of him just being some psychopath who just did it because he wanted to do it, not because there was some backstory that led him to do it. And again, it doesn't justify what he does. You know, he's still an evil person for doing it. But I don't know. I personally just I like the old. I like the thought of, you know, him just being a psychopath. And going back onto the animatronics, I think it's funny how these are they're probably the most advanced of the animatronics. Well, until Security Breach at least, but up until this point, these are probably the most advanced of the animatronics in the franchise. And you would think that, you know, oh wow, these are very robotic, very futuristic, very sci-fi-like almost. And then you realize, oh wait, this takes place in the 80s. So I guess it's just to show off Afton's genius as a robotics engineer, you know. But it's just kind of funny, you know, how oh wow, these are super cool and advanced that look like they'd be in a futuristic sci-fi movie. And then you realize, oh, this game takes place in the 80s, where the technology was not very good. And you could look at any old footage of Chuck E. Cheese animatronics back in the 80s, and you're like, yeah, I don't think that technology was possible back then. But, you know, it's fine. It's just, it's fun. This is also the game where a lot of other controversial ideas and theories started to come up, you know, the idea, well, I mean, okay, it's this game and the books really, especially the Silver Eyes trilogy, where it started to come up with the idea of these noise little chips that could warp how people look at the robots and stuff, make them look more human or monstrous or cute or whatever, more realistic essentially. And, you know, that's also where a lot of other more outlandish concepts like robotic children started to come from as well. You know, you all know that theory about the crying child, Afton wanting to rebuild the crying child as a robot. And, you know, which, I mean, I was willing to allow, you know, the Afton losing his kids concept earlier, but this one's stupid, and I don't like it. And, I mean, it hasn't been confirmed that this is true, but, you know, Matt Penn makes very good theories, and with a lot of evidence. So I think a lot of us are led to believe at this point that was probably where the franchise was going to go at one point. But then Scott probably was like, yeah, no, they don't like it. That seems like a bad idea. But yeah, those are my mixed feelings on Security Breach. I mean, like I said, I like it, and it's a welcome addition to the franchise, right, for sure. But it definitely, you know, it makes me ponder a bit, you know, because a lot of things I don't like about it. And it kind of took the franchise into a different direction that would ultimately, you know, steer towards Security Breach, which took it even farther into the point I don't like. But, you know, who knows? Maybe, I mean, if Help Wanted is to show anything, is they're willing to change things to try and make it better. So, I don't know. We'll see. But that's pretty much all I have to say about this game. But what do you think about Sister Location? Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments. And yeah, until then, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.